Hello, I am Drag, and this is going to be a very different video than my regular videos that have me doing speed paints. This one is going to be much longer. So, the backstory behind this one is that I saw an artist do this a while back, and I wanted to do something similar. It's the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. Pokemon and I have had a very tumultuous relationship throughout its 25 years of existence and my 25 years of existence as of recording this. And I wanted to, do this thing, but I also wanted to record it. But because I hate myself, I came to the realization that watching somebody paint 17 figures is far more interesting than watching somebody line art, color, cell shade, line art, color, cell shade, So I decided to do that instead. I did not capture me doing Venusaur because that one was a freebie. And I just wanted to know if I would be down to do the whole thing. So, without further hesitation, here we go. The first one is actually a shiny Incineroar. And the reason why shiny Incineroar is here is because I saw this one Tumblr or Twitter. It was a Tumblr or Twitter post, and it had a family with a Garchomp and a Mega Ampharos. Both of those are dragon types. However, what most people don't know is that those Pokemon actually can breed because they are both in the monster egg group. So I got curious, going off of a gym leader Sona thing, but I did this, and two of the Pokemon that were on that team were a shiny Incineroar and a Mega Ampharos. The reason why? Because the thing was based on entertainment. Incineroar is based on the wrestling trope of a heel, which is a bad or evil character, and Ampharos was the techie and an actor. It's not that uncommon of a dynamic that you see, at least not for me. I've seen them quite a bit, but I really like the whole dynamic. I even kind of shipped them together. I never actually had the two in the same game though, unfortunately. But yeah, the shiny Incineroar is named Riley. That is the backstory behind that. All of these Pokemon will have a story behind them. Next Pokemon, Gigantamax Labyrinth. This was a Pokemon that I wasn't really into when I first saw it. It just kind of existed. All I really knew was when I went to battle Melanies during the first time, I was like, oh crap, that's right. Ice types are usually paired with water type in Pokemon. And so that was my first encounter with it. But funny enough, Gigantamax Labyrinth was actually the first Gigantamax Pokemon that I wanted to catch on my team. And the one that I'm drawing right now is named Tipton. He is my Lapras. And also, funny thing, when I was trying to catch Lapras, or the Gigantamax Labyrinth, I could only capture males. It was so weird. And I was discussing that with a friend. He's like, that's really funny because Lapras is generally seen as a female Pokemon. We were both kind of laughing at that too, because we both kind of agreed that Lapras is 10 to 1. Most people would say if they saw Lapras that they would call it female, especially given its backstory. But yeah, I could only capture male Gigantamax Labrases. The thing that I really like about it is how it's designed basically. And I love how the blue of its eyes contrasts so perfectly with the red, just kind of unintentionally making it look terrifying, and I love it. Especially Melanie's when it Gigantamaxes in battle. Iconic. Okay, so favorite electric and psychic Pokemon, Alolan Raichu and Slowbro. So I'll start off with Raichu. The funniest thing about that is when I first saw Alolan Raichu, I was in sort of that mindset where I saw it on Tumblr and it was in Japanese. So it was just the Japanese bit and it had the Japanese typing and I saw electric and what I thought was fairy. And I'm like, oh my god, I cannot believe that they made yet another Pokemon fairy type because it's cute. And I'm still kind of that mindset. Don't just make something a fairy type because it's cute. Fairy is pretty messed up. If you actually read their if you actually go into the lore of what a fairy is, the fae, if you go into fae lore, they're actually pretty messed up. Leprechauns are not cute. They are not fun. And I'm pretty sure the pot of gold greatly embellished. But yeah, Alolan Raichu I caught early. PC named her PC. Pici, And when Raichu is such a fast and hard-hitting Pokemon, special attack, fast, hard-hitting Pokemon, and in the recent game, like in the newer games, it can learn Surf, this making its speed really, really good at wiping out Rhydon, which is definitely a Pokemon who has had a great advantage over it, especially with the Lightning Rod ability. And yeah, this one is has a cafe mix thing on because you'll see later, but I like it. Slowbro. Slowbro is a Pokemon that is actually on my dream team. My dream team being a Pokemon Real. Now, this is a Pokemon that I would want on my team, even though it's a hippo. And hippos are notorious for being incredibly dangerous, but I really love Galarian Slowbro. I actually love both Slowbros, but I put Galarian one on this one because it was easier for me. And what I love about Slowbro is that it's just one of those incredibly smart Pokemon, but people think that it's dumb because it's slow, but the only reason why it's so slow is because it's absorbing all of the knowledge of the universe at once, and that's gonna slow you down no matter who you are. And I love that it can learn Flamethrower, because it's usually a water type, and you send out your grass type, and then boom, Flamethrower. Your Pokemon's dead because it has an incredibly high special attack. And yeah, so that's Slowbro. Favorite normal type? Now, I'm actually conflicted on this one. I generally don't have, a general favorite normal type. They kind of change. But I put Braviary on here because Braviary was probably one of the first Pokemon that I caught specifically to be on a team. And that was in Pokemon White. I actually bought the Pokemon White because Braviary was in it. And that was actually the first game that I ever did that. Because normally I just pick the game. I normally pick the game that people don't want. It's generally the second game. So, you know how they have Pokemon Sword and Shield? Generally, I would pick Shield just because that's where all the actually cool Pokemon are. But, and everybody else wants the Pokemon. They just want the quote-unquote cool mascot Pokemon. But Braviary was definitely, a good choice. I love Braviary's design, especially when I first saw it. Although its flying animation looks much better in the sprite art than it does in actual 3D, because it's a really skinny, bony looking Pokemon, but in the old artwork it looks really intimidating and powerful. Not so much anymore though. Now it's just oversized bird. Favorite rock type is actually Carbink. I don't generally have a lot of favorite rock types. Carbink is definitely adorable, and I never really had a chance to use one until the Crown Tundra, and that was when I really got to see it in motion, because I always thought it was cute. It has a really adorable name in Carbink. It's like a little carbuncle. Do not look up carbuncle on Google image search unless you type in mythology or mythical creature, otherwise you will get some nasty stuff. You do not want to see that. But Carbink is an adorable little carbuncle rock thing, and I always kind of forget that it's a rock type and that it's 4 times weak to steel, because I never really think of crystal as being steel, but it is. It has a crazy high defense, which makes an attack called Body Press ridiculously powerful on it. And it's just overall adorable. I love it. 10 out of 10. The next two, Mega Swampert and Chestnut. I'll start with Mega Swampert. Mega Swampert was a Pokemon I actually didn't play Oris or X and Y when they first came out because I didn't have a 3DS and I was in high school and I wasn't about to drop however much a 3DS cost when I was in high school just to get them. But I remember seeing Mega Swampert and I'm like, oh wow, he's a thick boy. Well, whatever the equivalent of that was in 2014. But I was like, oh, okay, he's buff now. And as I got older, I'm like, okay, I can see why people like this design a little bit more. Especially when I saw a more realistic version of it, and he's just a mud puppy, a really fat mud puppy, axolotl, and that I loved it. I loved it so much. But the reason why was during my very first playthrough of Pokemon Sapphire, I actually did have a Swampert. It was at level 87, I believe. Oh, I love that thing to death. I remember at daycare, I would just play Pokemon with all the other kids, and nobody could beat my Swampert because my Swampert was the best. Chestnut was an interesting design because, like I said, I didn't play the games when they first came out. But when I first saw the starters, I was like, I don't like any of those designs. I especially hate Greninja. I've always hated Greninja, and the reason why I hated Greninja was because I knew that it would be popular, and I was right, and I still hate it, because its design is actually not all that interesting, or at least not as interesting as Chestnut's. It's just, it's a ninja frog. That's all Greninja is. It's a ninja frog. That's not really interesting to me, and I thought that its tongue scarf was gross. For one reason or another, I decided to turn my Pokemon team from X and Y into Gajinkas, and Chestnut, or Chester, is probably my favorite Gajinka out of all of them, next to the Mr. Mime one, and I don't know why. People don't, like, have that good of a reception on him. They're just like, I mean, he exists. But I'm just like, oh, you know what? I think it's because I actually wrote the character, and I fell in love with the character as I wrote him. If you don't want to fall in love with your characters, don't write about them. I'm going to say that again. Don't write about your characters, because you'll fall in love with them. All of them. Favorite bug type? Centiskorch. Centiskorch was a Pokemon that I never expected to like. The reason why I never expected to like Centiskorch is because it is a centipede. And I grew up in Ohio. And in the winter, let me just tell you, you wake up, cold morning, you go to brush your teeth, you look in the sink, and you see this! This is fucking terrifying. See that in the sink, and it just crawls around with its, like, million legs. It's gross and disgusting, and I hate it, and it scares me. But house centipedes are actually very harmless, and they actually eat flies, as annoying as flies are. So, like, okay. I didn't even know that they did that until I looked it up in the 9th grade. I did not expect to like this Pokemon, but I actually managed to catch a Sizzlipede in a raid den, 2-star raid den, and I had not planned on using it, but something or other happened. I needed a fire type, so I got her. I put it on my team, I evolved it and everything, named her Soup. And what ended up happening was Soup became an incredibly invaluable member of my team, incredibly powerful, and had her hidden ability. Now, generally, a Centiskorch's ability, I believe, is White Smoke, which basically prevents its stats from being changed by opponents. Mine had the ability Flame Body. Flame Body is an incredibly useful ability, especially in competitive, because you get the chance of burning your opponent if they attack you with a physical attack. And burns are crucial in that, like, attack, defense. Basically what a burn does is it has their physical attacking power, and mine had that ability to just give them that. Pretty fucking dope. My friends tease me about naming it Soup too. Drifblimp, favorite ghost type. Okay, so I have a stipulation with these things where I have to draw a Pokemon that I've had or used at one point or other in my Pokemon experience. And I actually have had a shiny Drifblimp in my Pokemon Pearl. I had it for like 1 second before I restarted it because I wanted to keep the shiny Drifloon. But the story of how I got a Drifblimp was, for one reason or another, in Pokemon Swish, they had this incredibly stupid level cap where you couldn't catch a Pokemon that was outside that level. So they introduced the wild area and made it so that you couldn't catch Pokemon past a certain level, but they have you encountering Pokemon past that level. It's incredibly stupid. But I was originally going to catch a Duskull. I could not catch a Duskull. So what I did was, instead, the area just outside it, I managed to catch a Drifloon. This Drifloon evolved into a Drifblimp and was incredibly powerful. It helped me defeat Alistair. It tanked an attack from a legendary, and then had that legendary knocked out because of the recoil damage. Like, oh my god, not many Pokemon can do that. Favorite Steel type. Fun fact, Steel type is actually my favorite type in general, probably because of Jirachi. Jirachi is my favorite legendary, but it didn't make this list because I don't like to use legendaries, and I haven't really had a Jirachi at any point. Well, I mean, I did, but it wasn't mine. My friend just traded it to me for, like, the weekend. But Mega Aggron is one of my favorites because I love its design. I love, I really like Steel types. Steel type is my favorite type because, like I said, because of Jirachi. But I actually had a shiny Aeron in one of my playthroughs of Pokemon. I believe it was Ruby, and it was my first ever shiny that I managed to have through the whole game. It was on my team. It really only made it to like level 44, and then that was it. I didn't really train it past that point. But I just love the design of Mega Aggron. It definitely has that special place because it was my first ever shiny that I managed to play through. I actually managed to get a shiny Torterra in my first playthrough of Pokemon Platinum. That's a whole other thing, but yeah, I really like its design. I really like how they really leaned into the whole Triceratops, whatever the hell it's supposed to be theme. Oh, and like to have it sipping that drink, I just thought that was so cute because I think it's more of a cuddly Pokemon, as weird as that sounds, even though it's a giant behemoth metal monster kaiju thing. Yeah. Next Pokemon, Sigilif and Drapeon. I love Sigilif. My first time ever seeing it was in a playthrough of Pokemon White, and it almost wiped out my team. This trainer had it. It used one air cutter, and it knocked out my strongest Pokemon in one hit. Sigilif is a fucking beast. I love Sigilif. Sigilif, not only does it have an amazing design, I love its design. I love that it's based on the Nazca lines. When I first saw the Nazca lines, I'm like, wait, how is it supposed to be based on those? I didn't realize that people were talking about its whole body. Its whole body shape is based on that. I love that. I love, I really like its design. I want to get a plushie of one, but they have not made an official plushie of one. There is a plushie of one, but it's like $300 because it's life-sized and handmade. And I'm not about to drop $300 for that. I get it, support smaller artists, but I don't want to do that because I have no place to put a 5-foot Sigilif. But Sigilif is beautiful. I love its design. If it were real, I would definitely want one. Unfortunately, it's not on my dream team. Although it could be. Not to mention that the Sigilif that I had in my playthrough of Pokemon Y was stronger than the legendary. It was stronger than the box legendary and almost took it out on accident. I have my own qualms with that game, but Sigilif was not one of them. Okay. Drapeon. The reason why I love Drapeon is because I love... it's good competitively. It has access to toxic spikes, which screws over just about everyone that I battle because nobody knows how to get rid of toxic spikes. I mean, I do, but they don't. And I love how it can really mess people up. I love that it's a giant sand scorpion. Have you ever seen a sand scorpion? Those things are terrible. Sun spiders, that's right. So it's a giant sun spider, but it's also a scorpion. And sun spiders are terrifying. Have you ever seen one of those in real life? You do not want to see one of those in real life. They're like really hard to kill. They basically just look like scorpions, but they're terrifying. And that's what Drapeon is, but it's bigger, and it's purple, and it has access to toxic spikes, and it screws everybody that I've battled over in competitive. Favorite dragon and fairy type. Now, these two have actually become my all-time favorite Pokemon, and honestly, the stories are not as deep as I would like for them to be, but the reason why Gigantamax Duraludon, is my favorite is because it turns into a fucking building. It turns into a fucking building. It's a giant sentient building. And it's a dragon. Like, fuck you, Charizard. Alright, this is what a dragon looks like. Iconic. And also, when I first saw Gigantamax Duraludon, I wanted one. Like, really, really badly. And I told a friend of mine that I really wanted a Gigantamax Duraludon, but I could never find one. I managed to find one once, and it popped out of the Pokeball almost immediately. It was devastating. I was devastated. I told him that, and he was like, okay. And then a couple days later, he messaged me. This was actually around Christmas, too. He messaged me and said, hey, you want to hop on Nintendo Switch Online, do a quick trade? And I'm like, why? He's like, come on, it'll be fun. I did, and when I saw the Pokemon that he was going to send over, I'm like, Duraludon? Like, why are you sending me that? It was a Gigantamax Duraludon. It had the Gigantamax gene, and when he traded it over, I almost screamed. Now, that Pokemon has a very special place in my heart, especially because this is a friend that I have known and have been friends with since elementary school. So it really meant a lot that he would go out of his way just to get one and then trade it over to me. And now I have a plushie of one. I'm really happy about that. Like, I'm really happy about the plushie that I have. That is definitely why Duraludon easily made this. And to pay that friend back, I actually got him a plushie too. I got him an Alakazam plushie. I just got it for him. And he said like, oh yeah, that Alakazam is like happily living next to all my other plushies. And he showed me, and I was so happy. And, okay, so Alteria's story, or Mega Altaria, well, both Alterias, their story doesn't go that deep, but in a way, it might. When I was in the 3rd grade, I believe, I was looking through my brother's strategy guide, and I saw Swablu, and I'm like, okay. This was my very first ever Pokemon game. And then I look at its evolution, and I saw a fluffy, Cloud Dragon Bird. And I'm just like, I need one of these. I don't care. I need one. But I don't like Swablu. I didn't like Swablu, but I love Altaria. I think that's hilarious. And I mean, it's still kind of like that. Like, Swablu's design is very apt to me. And at the time, I was not going to get a Swablu and evolve it, because ain't nobody got time for that. So what I did was I waited until the post-game to where I could catch Rayquaza, and I stayed in that Sky Pillar for almost 3 hours to find an Altaria, and I caught it, and it never left that team. Then in a playthrough, I actually, I actually caught a Swablu, and then I evolved it up to an Altaria, and I still loved it. I love Altaria so much. And I was reading its Pokedex entry, and when it really loves you back, it'll wrap you up in its cottony wings, and it'll just sing to you. And it's really sweet. I think that it's really sweet. It's a very nurturing and caring Pokemon. But also, in my region, I made it an Apex Predator, because in my region, they're 8 feet tall, and they're dragon. Fuck you, Charizard. Favorite ice and favorite dark type. My favorite ice type is obviously Mr. Rime. Anybody who follows me on any social media knows I love Mr. Rime. Mr. Rime was a design that when I first saw it, I fell in love. I love its design. I love how round it is. I love its weird mustache. And I love the ice cane, so much to the point that I kind of based my first D&D character on a Mr. Rime. Not the Mr. Rime that I had in the playthrough, but on a Mr. Rime. His general design, even though he looks nothing like a Mr. Rime, is based on a Mr. Rime. He is a Mr. Rime. And the reason why every iteration of Mr. Rime that I've drawn, well, almost every iteration, has had a plate of food is because the Mr. Rime that I have, I actually caught as a Mime Junior. Against all odds, it has the very rare feature that they implemented in these games called a mark. It had a lunchtime mark. So now every time it gets sent out into battle, it says, Mr. Snow the Peckish. I name my Mr. Snow, by the way. Mr. Snow the Peckish. And I love that. I love so much that one of my favorite Pokemon of this generation had one of the newer, rarer features on it. And that's just one of those things where you just kind of luck out, because now it sticks out even more than a regular Mr. Rime would, because it has that lunchtime mark on it. Isn't it? It's just so weird how these things kind of play out. Honchkrow is my favorite Dark-type Pokemon, because there's actually not a lot of really good... There's actually... Dark-type actually kind of sucks in general as far as gameplay goes. They have a lot of weaknesses. They don't really have any hard-hitting attacks. The only really powerful Dark-type, I think, is Darkrai, and Darkrai is a mythical Pokemon that you have that's hard to get. You have Evolitol, but like I said, I had a Sigilif that was stronger than Evolitol. I just don't really like a lot of the designs that they have, but Murkrow was always a very meh design to me. When I first saw Honchkrow, I didn't like it. But then I caught I caught a Murkrow in my playthrough of Heart Gold because I liked its sprite artwork. I shit you not. I loved its sprite artwork. I fell in love with it because I loved that deranged look that it had in its eyes. I found it in the Safari Zone. I caught it. It just became this incredible staple of my team. So much to the point where I went around looking for those golden leaf. And then I went to Lyra and she turned it into a leaf crown. And that's why every time I draw my specific Honchkrow, it has that golden leaf crown. Because the one that I had in that game had that, and it really, it just really went out of its way to show you just how much they used to care about Pokemon and the players having a good time. I hope I didn't get too sappy with this. These are my top 18 favorite Pokemon for various reasons. I know they all sound kind of superficial, but everybody has their own reasons for liking certain Pokemon, and Pokemon has now been around for 25 years. That is the majority of my life. I am a young being, but I'm also very old. I am an old man. And with that, I would like to say thank you, Pokemon. Thank you for existing and taking up at least 20 years of my life, even in that angsty 6th grade period where I hated everything about Pokemon and sold all the very expensive collectible, by today's standards, plushes. I No Joke had a Latios and Latias plushie that I got at Nintendo World in New York, and I just gave it away. I could have sold that for like $300. Anyway, yeah. Thank you for watching and listening. Like, subscribe, give me money on Ko-fi. Happy 25th anniversary, Pokemon. Here's hoping for 25 more. And yeah, bye.